Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. This video PowerPoint is going to be on the Articles of Confederation. This is from Chapter 7, Section 1. Again, you want to have your I can statements out in front of you. Follow along with me and jot down any kind of notes or questions that you might have from this video PowerPoint. Okay, what were the major successes and failures of the government under the Articles of Confederation? First off, articles are parts of a central constitution. A constitution is a written set of laws. So articles, just think like number 1, 2, 3. They're different parts that make up this brand new central or federal constitution. A confederation would be a grouping of states. So, in other words, you had a brand new centralized government that linked all of the brand new 13 states, not colonies, but states together. With independence came a new nation and a new form of government. As troubles plagued the country, many feared their new government had created new problems. Even before independence was won, many colonies, these are now states, began to create new state governments. In most states, the problems colonists had experienced with Britain helped shape the new state constitutions. Colonists believed the king had abused his powers. For this reason, the states gave few powers to the governor. Again, many powers, or most powers, went to the legislatures elected by the people. So from the arrows, you can see that executive powers went down, powers to the legislature went up. And again, you're going to see this in the states creating bills of rights. In other words, documents that guarantee their human rights. A lot of this was stirred up from the natural rights enlightenment argument. Think back to before we went on break here. So again, very not trusting of the executive. That reminded the citizens, not colonists anymore, of King George. So they gave their power to people that would make laws that came from amongst themselves. That's the legislature. Most states allowed more people to vote than in colonial times. You still had to be white, male, over 21, and own property. Still, African Americans and women were not allowed to vote in almost all the states. So again, voting was restrictive, but still more people took part in voting than prior to the War for Independence, and still way more than in England. So voting is a work in progress. By the way, African Americans, men, will be able to vote with the 15th Amendment. This is post Civil War, so think mid to roughly mid 1800s. The 19th Amendment, that'll allow women to vote. That'll be in the early 1900s. To make sure that people's rights would not be abused again, many states included a Bill of Rights in their constitutions. So again, here's some examples from the Virginia Bill of Rights. Freedom of religion, freedom of the press, limits on searches. So a lot of this you can trace back to the way Britain treated the colonists. So now that there's a brand new country, citizens are telling their legislators that they want protection. They want their natural rights upheld and protected. Matter of fact, Virginia's Bill of Rights is very similar in many cases to our national Bill of Rights now, the one we still use. And again, this is all being put together. While the states were writing new constitutions, so was the Continental Congress. In 1777, during the American Revolution, the Congress adopted a new plan of government for the nation. This is called the Articles of Confederation. Many of the concerns about colonial rule that shaped the new state constitutions also shaped the Articles of Confederation. So again, many of the citizens in the United States, they were skeptical. They didn't trust any kind of new forming of power. Nobody wanted to end up like England again. So again, they were skeptical. They did write their state constitution. Some jumped on right away. 1776, boom, they got it done. Other states, it took them another 4 or 5 years to get their state constitutions or their state laws put together. That wasn't as hard. What was difficult was getting everybody to agree on what kind of national laws for all of us should be followed. And this was, again, the Articles of Confederation. Under the Articles, the powers of the central government were given to Congress. This is a legislature elected by the people. So again, up with the powers of the legislature. People felt comfortable doing this. In fact, the legislature was the only branch of government created by the Articles. There was no chief executive. There's no president. Remember, people are scared. Nobody wants to have another king. There were no national courts. Again, no judicial branch. I hope you can see the problem here. A bunch of people sitting around making laws, but who's going to judge the laws? Okay, who's going to enforce the laws? Think back to the Enlightenment concept based on Montesquieu, Enlightenment thinker from France. Again, separating power. We really weren't doing that at this point in time, at least at the federal level, that is. To make sure the new legislature did not become too strong, its powers were limited. So the Articles were created to be purposefully weak. I know that sounds strange, but the states were very reluctant to give up their power and their authority. Again, sometimes people, as they get older, they don't really want to, maybe if you've ever had grandparents live with you, that's a difficult thing for them to give up power and to perhaps live with their children themselves. That's a hard thing to do, and the states didn't want to give up any kind of authority. They thought that they would lose power, and they were scared about that. Again, some powers given to Congress. This is what the Articles of Confederation could do. They could deal with foreign countries. They could deal with the natives. They could make laws, declare war, coin or borrow money. They could run a postal service. Even more important than the powers given to Congress, however, were the powers not given to Congress. Again, these are some of the powers not given. They could not regulate or control trade with other nations. Congress could not control trade between the states. Sometimes states would put up barriers and tell its citizens, we want you to buy from us. They would put up tariffs on the state next to them. So nobody would trade or buy anything, and the economy would just become very, very stagnant. Things and goods weren't moving. Congress could not collect taxes to fund itself. Again, Congress was forced to depend on the states when it needed money. This weakened the central government and gave considerable power to the states. So again, the states weren't going to say, hey, we'll be happy to pay money. Many of them had major financial problems themselves. While the government succeeded in organizing the settlement of Western lands, it faced mounting problems. We're going to come back to the settlement of Western lands. That's the Northwest Ordinance. That'll take us a little bit too far off on a rabbit trail. I'd like to come back to that later. Again, these are more problems under the Articles. States taxed each other's goods. States used different money. Think back earlier in the week when we looked at all the varieties of money. It was so confusing. Who could really do business in that atmosphere? Congress was broke. They had no money. Other countries ignored the United States. Again, it was too difficult to do business with somebody where their money wasn't valuable. At this time, money should have been based on something, but as you found earlier in the week, our money was based on thin air. It wasn't backed by gold. It wasn't backed by silver. And this was problematic. To make matters worse, an economic depression gripped the states. Again, farmers were hit especially hard, with many losing their lands. So again, imagine if you were a soldier. You served your country. You spent years away. You come back, and boom, you're losing your property because you can't pay your bills. Again, and make sure you understand what a depression is. This is a period when business activity slows down, prices and wages drop, and unemployment rises. Okay, so this is a bad time. And you would think that, prices are dropping, but remember, everybody's dropping their prices, hoping anybody will buy their goods. Again, angry and despair, a group led by Daniel Shays attacked an arms warehouse. These are made up of many Continental Army war veterans. Shays' rebellion failed, but it focused attention on the weaknesses of the new nation's government. Many began to think that a stronger central government was needed. That strong central government will be, by the way, the United States Constitution, the one that we have now. But all these problems and more are forcing people to rethink that this new Articles government is too weak. It needs to be stronger to be able to handle these problems, one of which was nobody's trading with us. The states have different money. We have rebellion in our nation. This is bad news. Again, in response, Congress asked the states to send delegates to a convention in Philadelphia to revise or change the Articles of Confederation. Okay, great. Go ahead now and start on your PQR notes or your Cornell notes, and feel free to reference back should you need to.